Shocking truth revealed, Black man fined by judge is actually an amazing federal prosecutor. The headline blared across social media with a sensationalism that made Marcus Thompson's stomach churn. A traffic ticket issued by Judge Vern Donovan had turned into a full-blown media frenzy. Amazing federal prosecutor, they said. Yet, behind the accolades lay a punishing narrative. Could a successful Black attorney truly belong in Maplewood, a town where whispers cut deeper than blades? As Marcus scrolled through the endless comments, the venom of old biases spilling onto his screen, he felt a mix of anger and despair. He remembered his mother's lessons, the stories of sacrifice that laid the foundation for his career. Was he tarnishing that legacy? Doubt rippled through him like a cold wave. Did merit mean anything in a community where perception triumphed over truth? To Marcus, being a proud federal prosecutor didn't feel so proud when confronted with the bitter residue of prejudice. For days he walked through the courthouse, an arena of judgment cloaked in familiarity. Old friends exchanged nervous glances, whispers swelling into unbearable noise. He could feel their biases swirling around him, a palpable force he couldn't escape. He hesitated at the thought of defending himself. Would it matter? Convincing them that he was worth more than a headline felt like climbing an insurmountable mountain. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Marcus' thoughts spiraled as he clenched his fists, eyebrows knitting together in anguish. The very career he built, the late nights of trial, the relentless dedication to justice, was overshadowed by echoes of judgment, tongues wagging in whispers about being the first. The fear of being minimized to a statistic filled him with unease. He fought back a tide of anger, though it mixed dangerously with grief. Taking the role of a quiet soldier for his family demanded loyalty, yet his ambition screamed to be heard. Then came the chance meeting with Judge Donovan, a towering figure from his past who embodied the ideal he strived for, a true champion of justice. As they talked of old cases and shared values, Marcus felt a brief flicker of hope. But the anxiety lingered. Would this conversation lead to justice for him, or merely highlight how far he had to go? Returning to his pressing dilemma, he felt the weight of expectations from his mother's narrative fold around him. She had taught him strength, yet now doubt clawed at him. The courtroom, once his sanctuary, had turned into a prison where biases ruled. It was in that conflict he discovered ghosts of his father's past, illuminating layers of unresolved grief that coiled tightly around his heart. The stakes surged as he prepared for a public hearing that would show the dark realities of their legal system. Could he be that beacon of hope, or would he drown in the storm of old prejudices? Standing at the crossroads, uncertainty clawed at him. The gears of accountability began to turn against a backdrop of scrutiny. As the crowd loomed in anticipation of his next move, Marcus squared his shoulders, pulse racing, for only one truth echoed inside him: he would not let the shadows of prejudice define him. How far would he go to fight for honor? The answer hung heavy in the air, the winds of fate whispering doubt just as the silence began to break. The day of the hearing dawned with a bittersweet haze. The air felt thick, charged with the energy of expectation, yet Marcus clung to the remnants of his resolve. As he stood before the towering courthouse steps, uncertainty twisted in his gut, but so did determination. He could feel the past weighing down on him like a heavy cloak. Each step up those steps felt weighted by eyes that watched, judging, waiting for him to falter. Inside the courtroom, a sterile silence wrapped itself around him. The polished wood glimmered under the fluorescent lights, casting sharp reflections that seemed to mock him. Every seat was filled, yet all he could see were empty expressions, faces stripped of empathy. He took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to retreat. He would rise to the occasion. He had to. As the hearing commenced, he could sense the palpable tension in the room. The judge presiding over the case, a hard-nosed figure with years etched into his face, continued to gaze at Marcus as if he were a puzzle yet to resolve. This was not merely about a parking ticket or a moment of misjudgment, it was about the very fabric of equity and perception woven into the legal system he so passionately defended. "Mr. Thompson," the judge addressed, calling Marcus back into the present. "I'd like to hear your perspective on today's events." The weight of the moment cascaded over him. It was an opportunity, a chance to fight back against the narrative assaulting his honor. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Your Honor, as you know, I've devoted my life to pursuing justice. What happened on that day was not an indication of my worth or character but rather a moment captured through the lens of bias." The murmurs in the audience crept into his mind, a dissonant chorus. He could feel their disbelief swirling like a storm, but he pushed through. Digging into the lessons taught by his mother, he found the words that might bridge the chasm between perception and reality. "It is crucial we acknowledge systemic issues that lead to such judgments. My professional credentials should speak louder than the noise around me." With each word, he painted a picture of his journey, how his mother's struggles had paved his way, the sacrifices forged in the fires of injustice. He could see the judge's expression soften momentarily before the external silence wrapped around him again. The judge nodded, taking notes, but deep down, Marcus felt no certainty. As the arguments unfolded, he seized every opportunity to dismantle the assumptions tethered to his race. "We need to confront our biases," he urged with growing fervor. "The legal system should not be an echo chamber for prejudices. It must be a sanctuary where merit prevails." With every point he made, the weight in his chest lifted fractionally. The flickerings of doubt gave way to glimpses of hope as he recognized the power of his voice, the impact of his conviction to challenge the narrative. But would the roots of prejudice run too deep? As the session drew to a close, Marcus took one last look at the judge and those seated behind him, knowing evaluations would continue long after the hearing. The future remained uncertain, yet the shadows that had suffocated him began to dissipate, replaced by a flicker of resolve. In that moment, he realized fighting for his honor would not be the end of it. It was merely the beginning. Marcus stood firm, contemplating the ripple effects of this moment. "The question is not just about my reputation but how many others stand at this precipice," he thought. What came next demanded a level of courage he had yet to fully grasp. Would he risk everything to penetrate the walls of bias and truly address the systemic barriers entrenched in the judiciary? As the final words of the judge echoed in the cavernous room, Marcus knew he had crossed into new territory, but what lay ahead promised a greater battle. Stepping out into the world outside the courthouse, thoughts raced through his mind. His phone chimed urgently, and as he glanced down, a message from Judge Donovan appeared. "We need to talk. Your fight is not over." The weight of responsibility set upon his shoulders once more. What would this next conversation reveal? The sun hung low in the afternoon sky, casting long shadows along the street as Marcus stepped away from the courthouse, his mind still racing with the tension and anticipation of the hearing. The air felt charged, ready to unleash storms or clear the skies. Each footfall echoed with the weight of his newfound determination, yet uncertainty loomed, a specter following him closely. Marcus hastily made his way to the nearby cafe, a small, unassuming place that had always offered him solace in the chaos of his professional life. He needed to think, to process the profound changes unfolding within him. As he entered, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him, grounding him momentarily. The barista, recognizing him, offered a warm smile that faded under the weight of his own thoughts. "Just coffee today, thanks," he murmured, allowing the routine to settle his frayed nerves as he took a seat in a corner, his fingers brushing against the edge of the table. Each sip felt like a step toward clarity. The message from Judge Donovan loomed large in his mind. What could they possibly talk about that hadn't already been addressed? His phone buzzed again, pulling him from contemplation. Another message from the judge read, "Meet me at 5. I need your insight." The urgency ignited questions within him. Why did he need Marcus's insight? Was it merely to discuss the hearing, or did it hint at something deeper, something that could change the course of his career? shifting in his seat, Marcus's mind dove into a whirlwind of possibilities. This wasn't just a battle for his own honor anymore, it was a chance to challenge a flawed system from within. His heart raced, feeding the fire of determination building within him. If he could lend a voice to others who found themselves struggling against similar biases, perhaps he could change the tide. That he recalled those who had influenced his path, mentors who had guided him through the law, his mother's fierce resilience, and the untold stories of countless individuals trapped under the weight of prejudice. Those memories galvanized him, illuminating a new mission, to dismantle the very biases that had once held him captive. Yet, doubts crept in. What if his efforts backfired? The stakes felt incredibly high, and the risk of failure threatened to snuff out the flame of ambition. With purpose renewed, he envisioned the upcoming conversation with Judge Donovan not merely as an obligation but as an opportunity. The judge was powerful, connected, but Marcus held valuable insights that could shift paradigms if he played his cards right. Could he strategically position himself to bring about substantive changes in the system while preserving his dignity and fighting for justice? As he visualized the impending discussion, Marcus recognized a growing sense of confidence within him. He had always fought for others. Could he not now fight for himself, too? Every moment leading up to 5 p.m. transformed into a mental drill, mentally saluting his past, but preparing for a fight that could redefine the future. Standing on the precipice of this new endeavor, he understood that true change requires sacrifice and possibly discomfort. He sensed an urgency that exhilarated him, yet clarity continued to elude. Would the judge see the potential for partnership or merely the remnants of prejudice that had clouded his judgment before? With renewed determination, he settled his thoughts, sharpening his resolve for the clash ahead. As he finished his coffee and prepared to leave, he confronted the truth. Change was an uphill battle, but now he had taken the first steps on that path. His phone buzzed for the last time before he exited, and as he looked down, another message appeared: "We must confront what lies beneath." It was ominous, yet it beckoned him deeper into the fray. What did Judge Donovan truly know, and was Marcus ready to unearth the hidden truths waiting to be revealed? As Marcus stepped through the cafe entrance, the world outside melted away. The street that had seemed so vibrant and chaotic now felt irrelevant. With every step towards the judge's chambers, he could feel the weight of expectation pressing against his chest, an insistent reminder of the task ahead. He arrived at the courthouse, the imposing structure standing tall against the evening sky. Entering the building, Marcus noticed how the polished floors amplified the sounds of hurried conversations and shuffling feet. Each tread echoed like a countdown, and a carefree exterior masked the churn of anxiety within him. What would he say? How could he ensure his insights were not merely heard but valued? As he approached the judge's office, he caught sight of his reflection in a glass panel. The determined expression staring back at him belied the uncertainty prickling at the edges of his confidence. Could he truly influence someone as powerful as Judge Donovan? The door swung open, revealing the judge seated behind a massive oak desk, its polished surface reflecting the intensity of the moment. The judge's gaze was steady, penetrating, as if weighing Marcus's very soul. "Marcus, thank you for coming," Donovan said, gesturing toward a chair opposite him. His voice carried a firmness that commanded respect but also hinted at vulnerability beneath the surface. "Thank you for this opportunity, Your Honor," Marcus replied, forcing himself to maintain eye contact. "I believe we have the chance to discuss the systemic issues at play in our courts." "Indeed." Donovan leaned back, fingers steepling before him. "I've been reflecting on the hearing and your objections. I sensed passion there and understanding of bias, perhaps. But you must know, confronting this issue isn't simple." Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline. Here was his chance to unpack layers of prejudice that others brushed aside. With respect, Judge, acknowledging the biases isn't merely a procedural issue, it's a matter of justice and equity. Donovan's brow furrowed slightly. "You speak of justice, yet what risks do you see in challenging systemic norms? Remember, the judicial system is built on tradition." Each word felt like a test, designed to provoke responses he had rehearsed in his mind. Tradition can perpetuate inequality. If we only uphold the status quo, we fail the very people we're meant to serve. My experiences, the stories of those I've fought for, they reveal that the system needs a crucial re-examination. Silence hung in the air as the judge regarded Marcus, assessing this bold, young attorney before him. In that instant, Marcus felt the weight of history pressing upon him, a legacy of struggles and triumphs shared with every soul unjustly judged. Tell me, Marcus, how prepared are you to push this narrative forward? To possibly face repercussions? A maelstrom of thoughts surged through him. This was the defining moment, an opportunity to live the values he had championed for others. I am prepared to face consequences if it means advocating for justice. I refuse to shrink in the face of struggle. The truth needs to be uncovered, and if I must be the one to do it, then so be it. Donovan's expression shifted slightly, an acknowledgement of the fire that burned in Marcus's resolve. You understand that truth can come at a steep price. Are you ready to bear such a burden? Change demands sacrifice, Judge. I cannot ask others to fight for their rights while standing idle. I must lead by example. Each word felt like a step further into uncharted territory, the anxiety transforming into conviction. Then let us delve deeper into this issue, together, Donovan stated, leaning in, his demeanor now more collaborative. What do you believe we must confront? The conversation shifted gears, diving into the intricacies of the judicial system, loopholes, overlooked biases, prejudices intrinsic to history and law. Marcus felt increasingly empowered. His insights were no longer mere opinions but a roadmap to potential change. This meeting could mark the start of a profound transformation, not just for himself but for those often sidelined by the very system he sought to reform. However, as their exchange unfolded, Marcus caught a flicker in Donovan's eyes, a sense of unease that planted a seed of doubt in his mind. What hidden truths were the judge still holding? And based on their revelations today, what price would Marcus ultimately pay for pursuing this path of integrity and justice? The tension in the air signaled that this was just the beginning of an arduous journey, and the stakes had never been higher. Marcus left the judge's office feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The conversation had ignited something deep within him, a simmering resolve to challenge norms he had long accepted. Yet, he couldn't escape the darkness lingering in Donovan's gaze, a hint of unspoken truths that gnawed at him. He stepped outside, greeted by a cool wind that whispered against his skin. Walking towards his car, his mind replayed their discussion, each word echoing like the footfalls on the courthouse floor. Was he ready to embrace the consequences of his newfound conviction? The answer was layered with uncertainty, and Marcus found himself questioning not just his future actions but the very foundation of his beliefs. In the following days, he immersed himself in research, poring over case files and judicial histories. Each snippet uncovered biases he had sensed but had never fully confronted. Subtle decrees and verdicts revealed a pattern. Justice was often blind in a convenient way that favored the past. Establishing a dialogue with Judge Donovan had opened a door, yet Marcus understood it was just the threshold of a much larger challenge. As he began drafting a proposal to address the systemic shortcomings in the legal framework, he noticed the changes blossoming within himself. Confidence surged each time he produced compelling arguments, each line on the page resonating with purpose. He was no longer just an aspiring attorney, he was a crusader for equity. What had once appeared daunting now galvanized his spirit. Yet with opportunity came the specter of fear. While Marcus drafted and argued with conviction, doubts began to sneak through the cracks. He often wondered who his allies truly were. The judicial system had its keepers, those who thrived on tradition, those who would resist change with everything they had. One afternoon, amidst his relentless pursuit of knowledge, a kernel of an idea formed. Uncertainty occupied his mind. The concept of forming a coalition of like-minded individuals, attorneys, activists, and even law students began to take shape. But who could he trust? Marcus knew he needed to tread carefully. The legal landscape was riddled with hidden agendas. He reached out to several contacts from his past, those he felt might resonate with his vision. Some were eager to join, others retreated into the safety of complacency. Each reaction cast further doubt on Marcus's own convictions. Was his willpower sufficient to rally others around this cause? As the days turned into weeks, Marcus found himself in increasingly tense conversations about his vision for reform, often met with resistance. The weight of the truth revealed by Judge Donovan only heightened the stakes. How could he rally support when the very fabric of the judicial system was underappreciated or willfully ignored? One evening, after a particularly heated meeting with a skeptical colleague, Marcus collapsed into an armchair, overwhelmed by frustration. That evening, he faced a moral dilemma. Was it worth risking everything he had built for a cause that could ultimately fall flat? Or was he merely shying away from the difficult truth that real change often comes at a high price? Just then, his phone buzzed a new message. It was a name he hadn't anticipated, a testimonial from a federal prosecutor who wished to connect and had heard murmurs about Marcus's growing activism. This wasn't just a stranger, this was someone who had walked the path he aspired to tread. Intrigued but cautious, Marcus wondered if this could be the ally he desperately needed. What revelations lay ahead, and would they propel him further into the storm, or guide him back toward the comfort of silence? As he composed a reply, a familiar tension coiled within him. The moment of truth was approaching. Would he step boldly into the unknown or retreat into the safety of what he already knew? A storm was brewing, and Marcus felt its pull unfurling. The journey had just begun, and with it loomed the looming question: how far was he willing to push in pursuit of truth and justice? When the very world he sought to reform was ready to pounce? Marcus stared at the flickering screen, the message from the federal prosecutor pulsing with a quiet urgency. His breath faltered as he thumbed over the words, wondering what insights this seasoned attorney could share. There was an undeniable gravity to reaching out. He had come to realize the weight of knowledge could empower or destroy. Gazing out the window, he saw the sun dip below the horizon, staining the sky with hues of purple and orange, a vibrant contrast to the turmoil roiling in his chest. This new connection felt like a lifeline, yet also a potential trap. Marcus knew the stakes had risen. What secrets lay behind the mask of professionalism in the ironclad world of prosecution? What hidden biases could he still uncover? He took a deep breath as he shifted his focus back to the draft proposal sprawled across his desk. His earlier momentum had slowed, hesitance seeping in with every attempted edit. Could the words he had penned truly bridge the chasm he now perceived in the justice system? In his pursuit of reform, had he overlooked elements crucial to compelling his audience? Amidst his thoughts, he decided to meet the prosecutor. The early evening air was brisk as he drove to the cafe where they agreed to meet. With each passing moment, fresh anxiety twisted in his stomach. This meeting could shift everything. Would he find a mentor, or would he be faced with the harshness of reality, exposing his assumptions for the naive dreams they were? Upon arriving, he spotted the figure seated by the window, an imposing presence wrapped in a tailored suit. Just from walking, the prosecutor exuded confidence. As their eyes met, Marcus felt a sense of simultaneity. Both men were walking paths lined with responsibility and the weight of their roles, though diverging in experience. "Marcus," the prosecutor greeted, extending his hand firmly. "Thank you for meeting with me," Marcus replied, a tingle of determination knitting through his nerves. As they settled into conversation, Marcus shared his vision for reform. The prosecutor leaned closer, his gaze scrutinizing. He nodded slowly, yet Marcus caught the hint of skepticism lurking behind his congenial demeanor. "Your passion is commendable," the federal prosecutor stated, a slight edge creeping into his voice. "But do you truly grasp the political ramifications of what you're proposing? You're playing with fire." That single phrase ignited a spark within Marcus, a blend of fear and exhilaration. It also crystallized his awareness of the risk involved in his pursuit. What it means to disrupt the status quo is not a solemn balance, it can be a violent whirlwind, the prosecutor continued, shifting seamlessly into the mentor role. "Watch for friends who become enemies. Turncoats will not wear signs." As Marcus listened intently, he felt the gravity of the moment. Here lay the stark reality of his crusade unfolding. This wasn't merely about inequality, a simple issue naive to the complexities of the legal framework. It was a battlefield where even whispers carried weight, and conspiracy permeated, woven through the very fabric of everyday operations. With the conversation deepening, he formulated a pivotal question. But how do I build trust with others committed to change when most prefer silence? Show them your resolve. More importantly, prove it. People will respect actions over words, the prosecutor advised. Yet never mistake confidence for knowing all the answers. Be ready to confront your ignorance and learn. As they conversed, Marcus felt a slow transformation within. Each pearl of wisdom began to reconstruct prior notions of self-doubt. The seeds of conviction sown by Judge Donovan blossomed under this fresh perspective. He faced a crossroads, to merely listen or embrace the challenge offered. With the meeting concluding, Marcus's heart raced as he departed. Exiting into the soft night, he mulled over the prosecutor's warning and insights. It became clear that he would need to arm himself not just with facts, but with the sheer grit to navigate treachery cloaked as alliances. As he reached his car, a daunting realization dawned before him. He wasn't just drifting towards his vision, he was thrust into a vortex of ethical dilemmas and potential betrayals. Another message buzzed on his phone, another call to action, or potentially a distraction. With his breath caught in anticipation, he glanced at the screen. How far are you willing to go to seek the truth? It read. The weight of that question hung heavy, pressing Marcus deeper into his commitment to justice and the unpredictable road that lay ahead, a road where every decision could spiral into consequences he could neither foresee nor escape. Marcus woke up to the sound of his phone vibrating on the nightstand. As he groggily reached to silence it, he spotted the message from the previous night flashing in stark contrast to the blurred reality around him. The weight of that question loomed large in his mind. How far was he willing to go to seek the truth? More than just a rhetorical prodding, it felt like a challenge, a fork in the road. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, the cool floor shocking him into a state of alertness. The image of the federal prosecutor's scrutinizing gaze replayed in his mind, a reminder of the precarious precipice upon which he stood. It was time to confront his purpose, to mold his passion into pragmatic skills. Right then and there, he resolved to take the first step towards shaping that jagged vision into something tangible, something the system could not dismiss. After a quick shower, he dressed meticulously, trading the comfort of jeans for tailored trousers and a crisp shirt. There was a distinct energy thrumming through him, an unfamiliar blend of resolve and uncertainty. He needed direction and clarity. Scanning his files, he remembered the work of various advocacy organizations that aimed to bridge the gap in the justice system. If he were to make a meaningful impact, he recognized he must delve into the machinery of these institutions, learning from their successes and failures. It was a strategic awakening, one that required him to analyze and dissect how these entities operated. He pulled out his laptop and began writing a list of organizations, highlighting their objectives and methodologies. This was not merely an academic exercise, each bullet point resonated with a future he had yet to define. As he worked, he felt a creeping sensation, a responsibility to act on behalf of those silenced, a sense of urgency fanned by the prosecutor's earlier words. Then, almost instinctively, he reached for his phone, dialing the contact number of a local advocacy group he had been following for months. They had successfully campaigned for reform in sentencing laws, and he needed to tap into that experience. The call connected, the voice on the other end offering a wealth of insights that further illuminated the path forward. With each piece of advice, Marcus's confidence swelled, understanding that the conversation was not just about information, it was about establishing a network grounded in shared ideals. Days turned into nights as Marcus immersed himself in this newfound pursuit. His evenings became spent at community meetings, where he learned to pitch his ideas to those invested in change. He witnessed the tension in the room, the mix of hope and skepticism on faces that reflected both despair and determination. But no matter how much progress he made, shadows loomed. There was an unease that clawed at him, conversations tinged with suspicion, people who spoke with conviction yet held their truths close. He began to internalize the prosecutor's warnings. The more he connected, the deeper the layers of trust seemed to recede. Everything changed when he received a chilling notification, an anonymous email detailing a critical issue within one of the advocacy groups. Allegations of misconduct were laid out with precision, an unethical fundraising scheme that threatened to shatter the organization from within. Panic surged through him, quickly followed by the stark realization this could be the first test of his resolve, a decision point where he must choose between loyalty to a group or commitment to justice. He could not conscript silence in the name of camaraderie. As the weight of the decision settled on his shoulders, he felt the familiar gnaw of uncertainty. How could he expose the truth without jeopardizing everything he had worked for? The stakes had shifted dramatically. What once felt like clarity had mutated into a web of ethical dilemmas. With his heart racing, he opened the email again, reading each accusation with mounting dread. The choice loomed before him like an unyielding wall, the question echoing back, now. Layered with urgency, pushing him toward a precipice he was not sure he was prepared to face. The time had come to confront not just the corruption outside, but the chaos within himself. Marcus pondered his next move, knowing with certainty that every step further into this pursuit of truth would entangle him deeper into the mire of risk and revelation. What he didn't know was just how explosive the fallout would be. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the weight of the computer screen casting a harsh glow on the turmoil brewing within him. The email still hovered in his mind, each line a jab reinforcing his internal conflict. To expose or to conceal? He found himself questioning not just the allegations, but everything he had just begun to build. The camaraderie he had sought felt like a fleeting echo, distorted by deception. He had thought connecting with the advocacy group would establish a solid foundation for his burgeoning career in justice reform. Instead, he felt caught in a web spun from the very complexities he had aimed to unravel. The need to act tightened around him like a noose. He rubbed his temples, the tension in his mind matching the knot in his stomach. It was a pivotal moment. Perhaps he needed to confront those behind the email before jumping into a reaction as reckless as exposure. Through his research, he had learned the art of inquiry. He wrote down questions, each one pushing him further into a strategy that felt intentional. What did they know? How deep did this corruption run? Were there other voices willing to be heard or silenced? With newfound focus, he picked up the phone again, this time dialing a local journalist whose work he admired. They had reported on similar issues, and Marcus hoped they could provide insight into a world teetering on the edge of exposure. As the line connected, he felt the rush of adrenaline replace his anxiety. "Hi, it's Marcus. We spoke a while back. I'm looking for some guidance about a sensitive situation, potential corruption within an advocacy group," he began, gauging the journalist's response carefully. The ensuing conversation unfurled before him, shedding light on the nuanced dance between transparency and betrayal that he needed to navigate. As he listened, he realized that uncovering the truth required more than gathering information. It demanded strength of character and an unwavering commitment to principles he had yet to fully clarify. Each revelation from the journalist left him contemplating his own morality. Was he prepared to sacrifice his budding relationships for a greater cause? Days passed in a haze of meetings and restless nights. Marcus spent hours strategizing how to approach the advocacy group's leaders without raising alarms. With every interaction, he felt himself drawing rivers of suspicion, yet a spark of determination ignited within him. His ambition now shared a stage with his ethical responsibilities, creating a symphony of disarray. Then came the breakthrough. During another community meeting, a young activist approached him. "I've heard things," she whispered, eyes darting around as though afraid her words would trigger a landslide. Her worried face mirrored his own fears. "I need someone who isn't afraid to dig deeper." The resonance of her plea ignited something inside him. It was one more thread in the tapestry he now found himself weaving, albeit a tangled one of risk and revelation. This activist had spoken the very realization he had dared not voice out loud. He wasn't just a passive observer, he was an agent of change. Yet, Marcus struggled with the inevitability of what he might uncover. He found himself drawn deeper into the shadows where moral clarity dimmed. Could he lead an investigation without compromising the very tenets of trust and justice he held dear? That evening, he drove aimlessly, wrestling with the dilemma alone on a side road shrouded in darkness. He had tasted the flavor of courage, but his throat tightened at the thought of betrayal looming at the horizon. As the clock ticked on, Marcus made a decision he would not falter. With an unwavering resolve, he would investigate the allegations more intricately, putting his faith in the system he sought to reform. But with every step, he could sense the forces at play, each choice leading him closer to a confrontation that could change everything. The moment neared when he would either solidify his role within this justice crusade or plunge himself into chaos. The risk of discovery hung stark in the air. Would he become the very thing he sought to dismantle? As he revised his strategy, the taste of urgency surged through him again. He realized there was no turning back from the choices awaiting him. He would embrace this path, weathering whatever storm came next, ready to challenge not just the corruption within the advocacy group but the darkness within himself. But the question lingered, heavy and demanding: was he truly prepared for the fallout that would inevitably follow his next move? The air in the small cafe was thick with the scent of brewing coffee, but Marcus barely noticed it. His focus narrowed as he scanned the room, mentally rehearsing the questions he had crafted the night before. He had decided to meet with the activist, Sarah, to gather more information about the allegations she had hinted at during their last conversation. It was pivotal. Her knowledge could provide him with the insights he desperately needed. He spotted her at a corner table, her fidgeting fingers twisting around a napkin, a subtle reflection of the gravity of their meeting. As he approached, each step felt heavier, the burden of his choices weighing him down. "Sarah," he greeted, forcing a smile, though he was all too aware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. "Marcus, thanks for meeting on such short notice," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. The intensity of her gaze made the stakes feel very real. "I didn't know who else to trust." He took a seat, leaning forward, ready to listen. "What do you know?" She hesitated, glancing around before lowering her voice. "I've heard whispers that the leadership is more involved in shady dealings than they let on. Funneling money meant for community support, manipulating narratives, you name it." Her eyes flickered with anxiety. "People are scared to talk. They don't know who to trust anymore." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't just inside information, it was a portal to uncovering the truth. Yet, he also felt a pang of dread. These revelations could create rifts, not just in the organization, but in his professional and personal life too. "Do you have anyone you trust that could corroborate this?" he asked, keen to gauge the landscape before he took further steps. She nodded slowly. "There are a few. But they're not ready to come forward. Fear of retribution is strong. I thought maybe if you lead the investigation, they'd feel safer." The weight of her suggestion pressed heavily on his conscience. Leading an investigation would mean he'd have to confront the very figures he admired, potentially unleashing a cascade of consequences. Could he truly bear the responsibility of putting others at risk? "Are you prepared for this?" "A lot can go wrong," he probed, seeking to understand her readiness and the moral implications that she might not have considered. "I am. We can't let them get away with this," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "If the truth is out there, we need to find it." As the conversation deepened, Marcus felt a shift within himself. This was no longer just about the information, it was about standing up for what was right, even amidst fear and uncertainty. He realized he was not alone in this fight. Each revelation from Sarah resonated with his own internal struggles. But there was still uncertainty gnawing in his stomach. The possibility of unveiling corruption brought forth a duality of hope and fear. He had to negotiate his ambition against his ethical responsibilities carefully. Days turned to a chaotic blend of investigation and introspection. He found himself poring over documents, creating connections, and reaching out cautiously to those Sarah had suggested. Each conversation peeled back layers but also exposed him to more potential repercussions. Would others stand with him, or would he have to bear this weight alone? then, a text message disrupted the rhythm of his thoughts. "Marcus, you need to meet me. I have something big." It was from the journalist he had called previously. His heart raced at the urgency in the words. As he prepared for the meeting, a flicker of doubt invaded his mind. Was he truly ready to handle what he might uncover? The truth could be a monster lurking beneath layers of pretense, ready to consume everything he had built. That he wiped his palms on his jeans, ceased his pacing, and took a deep breath. The time had come to face not only the truths within the advocacy group but to confront himself. Would he have the strength to navigate through the tumult and emerge not just intact but stronger for it, with his heart pounding heavier than ever? He set off to meet the journalist, a sense of inevitability enveloping him. Whatever information awaited him, it would demand a reckoning. He couldn't ignore the nagging thought, perhaps it would redefine not only his career but his very essence. But deep down, he questioned something larger. Was he ready to confront the truth, or would the truth confront him first? The clang of the door behind Marcus was like a countdown echoing through his mind. The dimly lit cafe had always offered a sense of comfort, but today, as he stepped in to meet the journalist, it felt more like a coliseum where choices would be dissected under a harsh glare. He approached the table where the journalist sat, their expression inscrutable. "Thanks for coming," they said, leaning in slightly as if to shield their words from the ears of the world. "What do you have for me?" Marcus's voice held a steadiness that belied the storm swirling inside. The journalist shuffled through a folder, pulling out documents that bore testimony to insidious actions, financial irregularities, memos that hinted at unethical decisions, and detailed accounts of clients who had been wronged. "This is it, Marcus. If you decide to go forward with this investigation, you'll be putting everything on the line." Each page was a blow to the illusion of integrity he had clung to in the advocacy group. He felt a combination of dread and purpose settle within. What's the next step? He asked, urgency overpowering his fear. "Monitor their activities closely. Document everything. But be careful who you involve," the journalist cautioned, eyes darting around the room. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Marcus's shoulders. He was no longer just a single voice in the system, he was becoming a catalyst for change, yet the price was steep. As he left the cafe, a cocktail of resolve and trepidation churned in his gut. The initiative had crystallized into urgency, and Marcus wasted no time diving into the gathering storm of investigation. Each day became a delicate balance between learning and clandestine action, but that newfound duality invigorated him. He recalled a whisper from the prosecutor, the need to prove oneself through action rather than mere words. Then came the fateful meeting with the leadership of the advocacy group. His heart raced as he laid out his concerns, buoyed by documentation. "I've noticed discrepancies in our funding allocations," he began, his voice steady like the press of a gavel. "It's essential we address these to maintain the integrity of our mission." He watched their faces change, shifting from confidence to unease. Before he could breathe, one of the leaders snapped back. "You're overstepping, Marcus. These are our internal matters." The tension crackled around them, but Marcus had crossed a threshold. "We owe it to the community to maintain transparency and honesty. I will not stand by while we compromise our principles." There was no turning back. Their resistance only fueled his determination. He documented every response that day and continued gathering support among those who might resonate with his vision. Days turned into weeks filled with the astonishing clarity of purpose, yet shadows lurked in every corner. Trust became a currency too precious to squander. In what felt like an epiphany, he finally formalized a community meeting to address these issues, inviting anyone who sought truth over silence. As he stood before them, the room pulsed with anticipation, doubt, hope, and a shared desire for reform mingled in the air. "Today, we confront the uncomfortable," Marcus stated, looking into the crowd. "This isn't merely an investigation, this is our fight. We owe it to those who came before us, and those who will follow, to break this cycle." The energy shifted as voices began to rise in agreement. They shared stories, struggles, and a collective intent to forge ahead with integrity in the face of adversity. As he shared their experiences, he felt the shackles of fear begin to crumble. A breakthrough came within days as whispers turned into action, leading to an independent audit of the advocacy group, a coalition formed to ensure accountability. Marcus's influence had ignited a movement. People began to rally around reform. Then, a message arrived from Judge Donovan now that the winds of change were shifting. "I'm proud of your determination, Marcus," he stated. "You have proven not only your worth but the need for transformation. Let us meet." As the acknowledgement washed over him, so did a sense of fulfillment. No longer just a prosecutor constrained by biases, Marcus had emerged as a leader challenging the status quo. He reveled in newfound confidence and competence, no longer sidelined by prejudice. As he approached the courthouse that day, the steps up to the entrance felt like strides toward a brighter future. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden rays that illuminated the path he had forged. The trial of his journey had begun to transform the foundations of his world and the confidence within. He had awakened a hunger for justice, a relentless pursuit toward equality shaped not by fear, but through determination. With every day that passed, he embraced the challenge of being a light in the murky waters of injustice. Long gone were the days of uncertainty, replaced by bold action. In truth, justice was not a destination but a journey on which Marcus stood resilient, proud and awakened, ready to take on the world, one challenge at a time. For those who are inspired by the power of transformation and the relentless pursuit of justice, this is your moment to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every thumbs up counts. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this resolution. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of personal overcoming. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.